Jurassic World, the trilogy that's not exactly known for its brimming intelligence. Since you guys enjoyed my Rebirth video, it makes sense to go back and revisit the base trilogy. The first movie is definitely the least offensive and oddly feels very similar to The Force Awakens, due to its usage of similar plot elements from Jurassic Park and its high amount of fan service.
Oh, this? I got it on eBay. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So, let's see how questionable certain aspects of the story are, and how the movie has aged writing-wise in this retrospective devoid of logic. The first 15 minutes of the movie includes typical fanfare and your usual build-up, setting up Claire, who manages the park, and her two nephews who are visiting for the day. Nothing is problematic in what is shown so far. However, things get extremely shaky when the writers start trying to rationalize the existence of Jurassic World. The first moment that basically made me do a spit take that pours gasoline all over John Hammond's arc is Masrani, the billionaire who created Jurassic World, insinuates that John supported this park. I can't play the clip due to copyrighted music, but he says, "John Hammond entrusted me with his dying wish, and not once did he mention profits. Spare no expense," he used to say. Now, this is a complete misrepresentation of John Hammond as a character and dismantles his arc and the entire message of the first movie. Having control over dinosaurs and thus nature is impossible. Problems and unpredictable events will inevitably occur, and the whole point of Jurassic Park is that humans can't play God. Control is an illusion. John Hammond by the end of Jurassic Park comes to accept this, and in the second movie, he pivots his goal to just wanting the dinosaurs to live a peaceful life without human intervention. The last thing he'd want is to replicate Jurassic Park and try again. Like, to clarify, Jurassic Park was traumatizing for John Hammond. His idyllic dream got some of his peers brutally killed, he endangered prolific scientists that he looked up to, and his grandchildren were almost eviscerated by velociraptors. In no way would he ever endorse or condone this to possibly ever happen again, because he actually has empathy. So the writers twisting and altering the core message and arc of Jurassic Park to rationalize Jurassic World's existence is quite disingenuous. But hey, don't think about that. The Jurassic Park theme is blaring into your ear canals and tears are starting to roll down your cheek. Don't pay attention to anything deeper than the surface of this glossy story. Masrani and Claire arrive to the Indominus Rex's paddock, and everything surrounding the Indominus Rex is overwhelmingly devoid of logic, as the writers wanted to include a scary monster to sell the movie to the audience.
Big monster!
But had a really hard time actually justifying its existence within the world. There are 7 whopping reasons that make the Indominus Rex's existence very questionable. Firstly, there are hundreds of species of dinosaurs. This would allow the theme park to basically in perpetuity have expansions until they run out of room on the island. This is generally important for theme parks because new expansions drive more interest and press, thus increasing public demand for wanting to go to the park. You may also think there's a limitation in that they directly need the blood of a dinosaur to bring it back, but in a scene halfway through the movie, Gray randomly exposits that they only need dinosaur bones now, so they can theoretically bring back any dinosaur at this point. There really shouldn't be a realistic need to manufacture custom dinosaurs. This leads into the second problem in that this would be very expensive. Masrani at one point complains about costs, and if he really wanted to cut them, then he should axe this insane program. There's no way they made the Indominus Rex for $26 million, especially after the established lore from Rebirth in which they had an entire island for experimenting on hybrids and mutated dinosaurs. The R&D department for something like that would be in the hundreds of millions and possibly even the billion-dollar range.
The average cost of a created species is $72 million.
To be fair, that island shut down in 2008, but for context, Jurassic World opened in 2005. So I guess they moved those operations to the main island, despite explicitly stating they didn't want to do that in Rebirth, and it'd be too dangerous.
You don't want to do that in the middle of a theme park, do you?
With what happened on that island, you'd think they wouldn't be allowed to continue that kind of research anymore. I know Rebirth released a decade after Jurassic World, but these developments indirectly impact this movie. Going into another reason that synergizes back with the first point, the park should always theoretically be at max capacity or close to it. A dinosaur theme park would be the most popular attraction in the world, so this further drastically reduces the need to manufacture a scary monster. If Disney is constantly at capacity and is overflowing with guests riding the most outdated and boring rides, then I'm sure Jurassic World will do just fine. Like, even I would put on my bucket list to ride a dinosaur like a motherfucking pony. That's just peak and beats waiting in line an hour to ride It's a Small World. On the subject of the park's audience, there's also the general expectation that people want to see dinosaurs. Seeing man-created atrocities, at least to me, is by no means as cool as seeing real creatures that used to exist in the distant past. Claire insists that the Indominus Rex will shatter everyone's minds, but will it though? I'm pretty sure dinosaurs in general are already doing that.
They're dinosaurs, wowing up.
This also feeds into the fifth reason where, if you really want to create a scarier dinosaur, then there are plenty you can bring back that fit that profile. And they even already have one that they're not utilizing, which is the Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 3. Oddly enough, the Spinosaurus already looks very similar to the Indominus Rex, so why not cut out the astronomical R&D budget and just bring back a dinosaur that already exists within this world? For the sixth reason, the genetic makeup of the Indominus Rex inherently contradicts its purpose. Why would you make a dinosaur whose main function is being viewed by the public have the ability to camouflage with its surroundings, thus making this a bad attraction where there's a strong possibility you won't even get to see the dinosaur after waiting in line? This point also has a lot of other issues where Henry Wu, the scientist who made the Indominus Rex, has classified all the animals it was molded after besides the T-Rex. So the people containing it don't even know what it's capable of, which will be a major problem for later. Then finally, the thing that ties everything together is that John Hammond would be wholly against the Indominus Rex. He wanted an authentic, educational experience where you could see real dinosaurs, not artificial provocative monsters. Going against his thesis and further pushes this into a heretic zone of humans playing unhinged gods. The gasoline that was poured all over John Hammond's arc has basically turned into wildfire at this point. I know the Indominus Rex from our perspective may be pretty cool and acts to spiral the story down an exciting path, but from the logical continuity of the movie's world, the writers do a terrible job with naturally integrating this plot element without a lot of narrative problems. Which honestly, there's a perfectly easy writing solution to get around all of these issues, and it would still serve the same narrative purpose in which the scientists are already filling in the DNA gaps of these resurrected dinosaurs with other animals. This is even the case in Jurassic Park. So you could naturally develop this to a point where a new dinosaur turns out to be something they didn't expect as it grows into an adult, taking everyone by surprise as it escapes, instead of the scientists being like, nah, we're not telling you what it's made of, which is just a really forced way for the Indominus Rex to get out. Moving along, we meet Owen Grady, an animal behaviorist who used to serve in the Navy. He's training a pack of velociraptors to be more obedient and listen to humans. This development is fine as this is a viable premise where you can build a bond with intelligent animals, especially if you imprint on them since infancy. The crazy aspect of this subplot though is what InGen, the corporation behind Jurassic World, intends to do with the velociraptors. Wilson Fisk wants to use them as weapons in a war, throwing dinosaurs into the military-industrial complex. He primarily wants to do this because he makes sweeping generalizations like downplaying drones because they're hackable, and the second a war breaks out, technology will somehow go dark. So, we need velociraptors. This is obviously a batshit ridiculous notion, and it's really annoying that this doesn't go away in the later movies. Just off the top of my head, there are 3 obvious major flaws here. 1, the nuance of training a dinosaur to carry out a specific mission in a war zone would be practically impossible. 2, they aren't immune to, bullets. Blue literally almost dies to a pistol gunshot wound in the second movie, so God forbid they go up against anything with higher caliber rounds. And 3, producing clones of velociraptors that then have to be trained for years would be absurd from a financial and time standpoint. It would be exponentially more efficient and cost-effective to just produce more tanks or jets, let alone missiles that you can use in airstrikes. So yeah, Velociraptors in the military genuinely has the vibes of a child in kindergarten coming up with this idea, and the movie seemingly takes itself pretty seriously in this development.
What if they decide they want to be in control?
Well, then we remind them who is. We terminate the rogues. Promote only loyal bloodlines.
One thing outside of the practicality of this is Owen and his friend Barry are clearly against using velociraptors in this way. Wilson Fisk should recognize that maybe implementing people to carry out an objective that they vehemently disagree with would probably yield negative results for the company. But if he recognized that, that would mean he'd throw Owen out of the narrative, and we can't have that. Who else is going to drink Coca-Cola while dripping with sweat and catch flies out of the air like a sexy Chad? After talking with Mr. Fisk, one of the workers falls into the Raptor paddock, spurring Owen into having to save him. Owen uses the force to hold back the velociraptors, and right before getting eaten alive, he rolls back through the closing gate. For this scene, this is really contradictory in terms of Owen's relationship with these velociraptors, because if he's on the precipice of getting eaten alive by them, I find it really hard to believe that later on in the film, he's able to deeply control them, even with a new established alpha controlling them in the Indominus Rex. Just seems like a scene that the writers wanted a high amount of tension in, but simultaneously want to have it both ways where they're still homies later on. Claire goes to find Owen to inspect the Indominus Rex's paddock, and it's also revealed they have a bit of a past.
And what kind of a man shows up to a date in board shorts?
Central America, it's hot.
Based. In the scene where Owen evaluates the paddock, this is probably one of the dumbest moments in the movie where the Indominus Rex isn't showing up on the thermal scans, and after seeing claw marks on the wall, Claire and everyone automatically assumes that the dinosaur got loose, despite not first verifying that by checking its tracker before going into the enclosure, or let alone anyone outside working on the enclosure not noticing a dinosaur somersaulting over the wall. Literally all Claire had to do was call Laurie and ask for the coordinates, and then they would have found out that it's still there. If the Indominus Rex can already camouflage itself, it shouldn't be out of the question that it could potentially be cold-blooded. Also, it's pretty silly that they simply can't check the dinosaur's tracker in the control room by the paddock, but all of this happens to perfectly and conveniently orchestrate a scenario for the dinosaur to get loose. It's just unfortunate that it's entirely contingent on our characters being brainlets, thus kickstarting all the conflict in a very contrived manner. A quick nitpick in this scene is when Owen is running for the door. It's crazy that it falls apart as if it's made of paper mache when the Indominus Rex runs into it. Like, it's one thing if it can stop it from closing, but it should definitely be stronger than that. Whoever constructed this paddock did not do a very good job. The worker opposite from Owen unfortunately is terrible at hide and seek, and Owen intelligently covers himself in petrol. But this is a little questionable because the Indominus Rex had line of sight on Owen while going under the vehicle. It should know he's still there, but maybe it has bad short-term memory? Who knows at this point? Now it falls down to asset containment to stop the Indominus Rex, and they decide to use some tiny zappers and non-lethal rounds, which is baffling. Surely they should know that would have a negligible impact, but I guess not.
We have $26 million invested in that asset. We can't just kill it.
For context, Masrani is supposed to be the 8th richest person on Earth. According to Forbes in 2015, when this movie was released, that 8th spot in the top 100 richest billionaires ranking is listed at $41.7 billion. Assuming Masrani's wealth is close to that figure, $26 million is nothing to him. That would be 0.06% of his wealth, assuming it was actually coming out of his pocket. Percentage-wise, if he had $50,000 in the bank, 0.06% of that is a whopping $31. Or if you're broke and only have $100, that would equate to 6 pennies. So, Masrani is freaking out over what he'd essentially use as toilet paper, while risking the money printer that is the entire park by not taking more drastic actions. This park has been operational for 10 years. You'd think the contingency plans would be much stronger and more harsh than this. Because the second you have a Jurassic Park scenario, you lose everything. I'm sure these puny tasers will do the job, and what the fuck is this net gun going to do? Why does no one know what they're up against? They didn't even tell these poor guys that the Indominus Rex had camouflage. That's like the one thing they know it can do. From a non-lethal perspective, why don't they have high-dosage tranquilizing darts? Those are extremely effective against large dinosaurs, and that's how they captured the T-Rex in the second Jurassic Park movie. This point is made even more confusing because they use tranquilizing darts on the escaped flying dinosaurs later in the movie.
Mr. Grady, if you're not gonna help, there's no reason for you to be in here.
Why you bullying me?
My boy's out here getting the gaslighting treatment. He's the only one giving good advice. Zach and Gray, the nephews, have been vibing in the park and spontaneously decide that they want to ditch Claire's assistant, who's been guiding them around. There's no perceived reason as to why they would do this, and it's only done so the nephews could go rogue and Owen and Claire would have to go save them later. And to stack on this, they coincidentally board the gyrosphere right before the evacuation is called, which is an insane coincidence, and the plot conveniences don't stop here. Surprisingly, the nephews have full control over the gyrosphere and ignore the ride being closed. They do have VIP wristbands, but the movie doesn't explicitly say that they can override any form of automated controls, which the ride should have. Claire also calls them after her assistant finally tells her that she lost her nephews. It's literally been over about an hour, and if she did this any earlier, then all of this would have been subverted, but apparently, the reception in the gyrosphere is so bad to the point that they can't hear Claire on the phone. And since these kids are prodigy geniuses, they can't piece together the coinciding events of the ride being closed and them getting a call from Claire, which could potentially point to the situation being an emergency. Instead, they make the brilliant choice to go into a restricted area. I'm sure those claw marks and the busted open gate doesn't mean anything bad and isn't why our ride is currently closed. Let's just follow it for reasons. This is a lot of crazy hoops that the writers jump through just to get these two nephews into this specific plot point of them getting jumped by the Indominus Rex.
I understood that reference.
Thankfully, since the outer shell of the gyrosphere is made of bulletproof glass, they're going to be safe. Oh, never mind. I guess the Indominus Rex can effortlessly pierce it with barely any force. It's kind of shocking how fragile these gyrospheres are. Like earlier, they collide with one dinosaur and hit a rock, and it renders the entire gyrosphere as being inoperational. Must be a miracle that there haven't been any incidents prior to this. The Indominus Rex puts the jawbreaker into his mouth and starts slamming it into the ground. The gyrosphere is a physics-exempt zone, since the force of these impacts would liquefy the kids. This would be like getting repeatedly rear-ended by a semi-truck. After a few blows, the glass behind them breaks and they fall out of the gyrosphere. Miraculously, when the Indominus Rex slams the gyrosphere down again, the nephews are perfectly placed in a position where nothing severs their bodies in half. That's some crazy accuracy, and at this rate, they should really sign up for the Final Destination franchise. The kids run away, and this scene essentially establishes a trope moving forward where our human characters are somehow faster than dinosaurs. Since the Indominus Rex has the genes of a raptor and a T-Rex, it should be assumed that its sprinting speed is around 30 to 40 miles per hour as established in Jurassic Park. So, to get around this massive speed difference, the creators resort to the Monty Python skit where the running knight teleports back when cutting to a different shot. As you can see, the Indominus Rex is on the precipice of catching the kids, and then they run up to the waterfall and sit there for a hot second. And then in the next shot for the Indominus Rex, it's erupting through the tree line again. Like, what? The nephews stand at the waterfall for 10 whole seconds, when it was just shown prior that it was right behind them. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if, had the Indominus Rex caught them, he would have chipped a tooth on their plot armor. Also, if the Indominus Rex wants them so badly, then it could probably just walk down and around, but it decides to nope out. A little bit of time passes and Zach and Gray find the old Jurassic Park compound. since this takes place on the same island as the first movie. This seems a bit odd because it shouldn't be like this place has gone undiscovered. It would most likely either be turned into some attraction/museum, repurposed into another building to save money, or simply demolished to open up more room on the island. The way the writers make it seem is no one has bothered to disturb this place, obviously for the sake of maximum nostalgia. The bigger devoid of logic point here though is Zach repairing one of the Jeeps, and for context, these have been left untouched for roughly 30 years. To name a few problems the car would have, there'd be fuel degradation, every component in the car would be dysfunctional due to rust, and there'd also be rubber and polymer deterioration. To put simply, the car would instantaneously fall apart if they tried to drive it, but it wouldn't even turn on in the first place. So, replacing a singular battery and that fixing everything is absolute absurdity.
How'd they even get one of these things started?
You should ask the writers that question. While in the garage, the Indominus Rex suddenly shows up and sticks his head into the room. As established earlier in the movie, the Indominus Rex can sense thermal radiation.
They say it can sense thermal radiation, like snakes.
So, in this instance, it should clearly know that there are two people behind this car. Instead, it doesn't notice them and leaves. Just kidding, it slammed through the roof in a crazy surprise attack, which just seems so random and unnecessary. It could have easily eaten them earlier when its mouth was a foot away from Owen. But thankfully, the roof caving in doesn't throw any debris onto them somehow, and they simply run out of the room into a safe area. Quite the intelligent beastie.
What are you gonna do with all these people? You got 20,000 people here. What are you gonna do? They have no place to go.
It's crazy to me that they haven't been evacuating people off the island en masse via boats for the past hour, and it seems like the writers artificially want all of the guests to stay here so we can have the mass casualty event. But before that goes down, Azrani decides to take a team in the helicopter and mow down the Indominus Rex with a minigun. The writers try to make him very heroic and noble, but that just feels like billionaire propaganda to me, and all of his actions contradict this. Bro would probably be one of the first people off the island. So, by divine sheer will, when they confront the Indominus Rex, the person shooting the minigun misses every shot. For how many rounds a minigun fires, it's insane odds to miss everything, and the dinosaur would most definitely be red paste on the ground. Since it somehow didn't get shot, the Indominus Rex dives into the aviary and releases a bunch of flying dinosaurs to take down the helicopter. That's pretty dang smart, despite previously bungling its attempt at killing Owen and Claire.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to a containment anomaly, all guests must take shelter immediately.
That's a nice way of saying there are dinosaurs loose in the park and everyone's about to die. It's also pretty funny that no one behind the scenes sounds the air horns until the flying dinosaurs are on top of the guests. Probably could have subverted this a bit more with a larger warning window, but whatever. We now have everyone getting rolled by dinos. One puzzling aspect here is there are a lot of buildings that people can duck into, but everyone is running around out in the open like headless chicken. I honestly don't know where they're trying to go. Seems like the creators wanted a long sustained scene of chaos, when realistically, everyone would crowd into the buildings for cover. Claire's assistant finds the boys and shortly after that gets kidnapped and juggled by the pterosaurs. They must have had a massive grudge against her or something, and I kind of just feel bad for her character. Claire and Owen find the Nephews while trinking a bunch of flying dinos, and Owen abruptly gets tackled by a Dimorphodon. To which, Claire pumps the little dino with 4 trank shots, which would probably kill it. They eventually find a car until being confronted by a human stampede. Owen, being the Chad he is, slams down the acceleration and reverses through a tight corridor with dozens of people behind him. He probably kills multiple people off screen in this maneuver. After getting to safety, some time passes and Mr. Fisk initiates a plan to send the Velociraptors after the Indominus Rex. As established earlier, nothing will go wrong. One point that probably doesn't bother anyone else that really annoys me for some reason is that these Velociraptors are running through a jungle and jumping over logs, but somehow, Owen is riding right alongside them on a motorcycle. Flat out impossible, and since it's nighttime, he'd probably just accidentally slam into a tree and instantaneously die. The Raptors eventually find the Indominus Rex, and lo and behold, it starts communicating with them and becomes the new alpha, since it's also part Raptor. This unwillingness to tell anyone what the Indominus Rex is made of is really biting everyone in the ass. And I don't know why it being part Velociraptor needs to be a secret. That should be a big part of the marketing behind the Indominus Rex, and this is how the marketing campaign sold this dinosaur to us, the audience, outside of the movie. But when it comes to the in-world audience, that's a big no-no. This secret is only in place so everyone here can get bamboozled constantly, and none of this would have happened with a small ounce of transparency. Which this lack of transparency point doesn't make sense because Mr. Fisk and Henry Wu are working together behind the scenes, so he should at least be informed. The humans open fire on the Indominus Rex and none of their bullets do any damage. You'd think their caliber rounds at this point would be upgraded and be more effective, especially with what was set up in this shot, and I guess that isn't the case. Why does Owen insist on lugging this pea shooter around if it's futile against everything? Even this person with the rocket launcher decides to wait until the Indominus Rex is running away to shoot the missile and he misses, instead of shooting it when it's not moving. It should frankly be impossible for the Indominus Rex to survive this trap, and maybe one of its hidden DNA strands is from Plot Armorosaurus. The Indominus Rex clearly gets away, and for some reason, everyone continues to slowly walk into the forest as if they're brainwashed. There's 4 angry and ravenous velociraptors on the loose. They should be getting the hell out of there. Unfortunately, no one is operating within the bounds of common sense, and the filmmakers want to continue this idiotic action scene and massacre everyone. Besides Owen, of course. Owen, Claire, and the kids drive to the hub of the park and go into the labs. Along the way, there was this one insane moment where Claire dies, but thankfully, she was resurrected off screen. While in the lab, our characters have a confrontation with Mr. Fisk, and a velociraptor randomly spawns in behind everyone and kills Fisk. Not sure how the raptor even got here. It would have had to have gone to this specific building and go through a bunch of doors and exhibits just to find everyone. Maybe this is possible if the dinosaur tracked off of smell and our characters are probably very stinky. This leads into the last set piece of the movie where the velociraptors are about to eat Owen, but given his strong past bond with them, in which they almost ate him alive 12 hours ago, they make up and team against the Indominus Rex. Now, the fact that there's even a sustained struggle here is pretty absurd because just a single blow from the Indominus Rex would demolish any of these small raptors. They should get shredded in seconds, but maybe Owen providing emotional support with his pea shooter is making up that massive difference. While this fight is going on, Claire decides to conscript the T-Rex into the fight. The problem here immediately is that this would take way too long. She'd have to run to the exhibit, lure it out and hope that that process doesn't take a while, and then come all the way back and hope that everyone is still alive. They'd have to hold out for at least 10 minutes against the Indominus Rex, which would obviously be impossible. Instead, the filmmakers make it seem like all of this happens within a few minutes, and that completely breaks any kind of continuity the film had left. There's also 2 other points here that are very problematic. During evacuation, Laurie decides to stay behind, and this is only done because this plot point of releasing the T-Rex wouldn't work if he had left. So the writers basically require him to stay and be inactive until Claire calls on him to do this. Then the other thing is Claire outrunning a T-Rex in high heels. This is by far the most pointed to dumb moment in the film, and for good reason. It's already ridiculous outrunning something that's clearly set up as being faster than a human, let alone doing so in something that would additionally hinder your sprinting speed. And she's waiting to run from the T-Rex until it's like 5 feet away. Claire is fucking suicidal. Anyways, the T-Rex saves the day just in time and Claire falls on the ground. Instead of getting up and running away since she's the fastest gal alive, she makes the daring choice of crawling around in the middle of the street while the dinos fight on top of her. Like the Indominus Rex earlier, she'd also get turned into red paste on the ground. Everyone reconvenes around the middle pathway and watches the fight unfold. Not sure why they would do this. This is buying them a lot of time to get away because if the Indominus Rex wins, then they're back to square one and they're screwed. It feels like they're staying here solely to justify our viewpoint, the audience, to watch this scene unfold, despite them having no reason to actually stay. Blue comes in after being put in timeout by the writers and saves the T-Rex before getting killed. They team up and coordinate via text chat with the Mosasaurus to gangbang the Indominus Rex. Quite convenient, but it was at least a pretty cool finisher move. This essentially wraps up all the devoid of logic points in the movie, and it's honestly surprising to me how much more dumb this movie turned out being on rewatch. This will especially make any upcoming devoid of logic videos on the next 2 Jurassic World movies pretty crazy because they're known much more for being very stupid. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments if I missed any writing flaws. And my Letterboxd, Discord, and Patreon links are in the description. Have a great day. Thanks as always to my amazing top patron, Logan Farmer.